Women, we love them. As a collective humanity, to be clear, um, we tend to treat them quite terribly, though. And especially in countries where Catholicism, um, the branch of Christianity uh, stemming from Europe, is dominant. And Mexico, unfortunately, was one of those countries. So women's rights spanned in a variety of aspects, from their social role to the role in the military, to property rights. And throughout the revolution, as varying parties had their own bases of power and had their own policies, they treated women's rights in a very large variety of ways, and either empowered women, took power away from women, or did both in the varieties of aspects that I'm about to explore. During the revolution, women served in the army. They were, although many were designated to feminine roles, this was a period of empowerment because it showed that women played an active role in constructing the government and the country to a better future. Indeed, we observe a shift in norms as some women become involved in active duty, uh, fighting and loyally serving as soldiers, just like everyone else. However, the involvement of women was often not voluntary. Some joined because of coercion, others because of danger in their communities and a need for protection as a result of many of the men being sent to become soldiers and dying. In analysis, it was not necessarily women gaining rights, but men, by dying, losing rights, and women almost being forced to take their place in many places. The transformational shift created by the revolution can best be observed by women only being allowed to join in combat again at the year 2000, turn of the century, which shows that the Mexican Revolution and its dire need for female support created a true slight shift towards a separate direction in the country's social conservatism that, of course, was turned back after the revolution. Now, let's move on to women in society. Diaz was great friends with the social conservatives, which meant, of course, many of his policies were very exclusionary towards women. Women were not allowed to divorce pre-revolution, they gained no suffrage, and their property rights were limited. It was only during the revolution, in 1915, that Carranza finally granted females divorce rights. This was transformational as the beginning of the church's waning influence in Mexican politics, which, along with the 1915 Constitution, extended all the way to Cardenas's time when legislation was introduced to provide female suffrage. However, the struggle was not complete. Women were actually not given the right to vote until the late 1960s, far beyond the revolution. This shows that Mexico's social conservatism extended beyond religion into a variety of aspects of society. Of course, political rights only constituted a part of the women's struggle in Mexico. Prior to the revolution, there was a dichotomy. In rural areas, women held a very limited amount of land due to their limited amount of power in the patriarchal society. However, in the city, Diaz's científicos were generally more liberal, which suggests that in adherence with French practices and traditions, they may have held more land and have been more independent, despite Diaz's personal social conservatism. Of course, during the revolution, many men died, and many families were left without male heirs. This is when female land ownership became more and more widely accepted as women were left at home to work the land as men went out fighting. However, it was especially during the Ejido period when land was taken away from large landowners or haciendas and split into individual farmers. That was when a majority of female landowners begin to appear in Mexico. However, with men normally being the head of the household and therefore in control of the property rights, most of the land split to women were often in actual control by the men and traded and sold and profited off of the men. And women's power in society, especially stemming from property rights, were generally still very limited. Even up to this day, only 12% of Mexican land is owned by women compared to like the 70 something percent owned by men. In sum, women did not necessarily benefit from the war, no, but they gained a certain amount of power as a product of the significant amount of deaths that occurred during the revolution. The poor, huddled masses of Mexico slowly became more female dominated, in large part because of the decline of male population in their society. Of course, this is accompanied by the Cristero Wars and a general shift towards the separation between church and state, which provided more leeway for female lobbyists to fight for women's rights in Mexico. This, of course, is a product of the revolution and the waning power of Diaz, the person representing the socially conservative faction of Mexican society.